to FL Teams Live. We are here. We promised you last week when we reviewed the AFC quarterbacks. We promised you we'd be back to discuss the equal conference, the NFC. In theory, at least. With me, I'm Jeff Macolino. You can watch me on Bolts and Bats in the Bay or listen to me. And with me is, as was last week, as is very often on FL Teams Live, my buddy Jeremiah Hensley. How are you, Jeremiah?
Fantastic, man. Ready to talk about this equally great conference of quarterbacks.
There we go. And, of course, our fearless leader. What's your name for him, Jeremiah?
The young goat. The young goat.
El Presidente, the king of FL Teams. It's Isaac Edelman. How are you? How is the summer of Isaac wrapping up?
I don't know. I had a great summer. Went to a few Yankee games. Went to Philadelphia a few weeks back. But now I'm back here on FL Teams. That's what's the best part about my summer, I think. And this show should be good. Talking about the NFL QB rooms, not the NFC QBs, because that's too boring. But the NFC QB rooms, we love depth, don't we?
Well, some people, size doesn't matter.
It's how your starter performs. No.
Yeah. Just judge me based on the first quarter. Well, why don't we get into this?
No better place to be. Where are we starting with this, Jeff? You or Isaac pulling the trigger? Where are we going?
Well, let's start with the NFC East. And Isaac, you want to pull up our tier chart because we have our AFC rankings still in place from last week. So we'll see how the NFC holds up. Let's start though with the NFC East. I guess why don't we let Jeremiah? Why don't you take the lead and 1 through 4 give us your rankings, and then we'll compare, contrast, and agree on where they go in this handy dandy chart.
I guess Dallas has to be first, right? Just because if you look at the 4 starters, Dak Prescott is the most proven of the bunch. Carson Wentz has a ring, but he did very little to earn that. But if I'm basing just starters, I go Dallas 1, okay? And then a close 2, I'm going to go with Philly because I believe in Jalen Hurts. If I'm really looking depth chart like we were talking about, I think Philly jumps it, right? Because you got Gardner Minshew, who's proven who can win games behind Jalen Hurts. Outside of that, man, your backups, Cooper Rush, Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor sticks around, but I don't buy Tyrod. But I do like Taylor Heineke. And believe it or not, I'm a big fan. I think, Isaac, you saw it in the draft. I really like Sam Howell out of Carolina. I mean, I think eventually that's going to be a good quarterback. So if I got to rank them, I'm going to go Dallas 1, slightly above. I mean, they're going in the A, right? And then I'm going to go Philly in the A. The Giants C, maybe. And same for Washington. I think they're really close there. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm not far off. So before I chime in, Isaac, do you have these 4 stacked up?
Yeah, I do. I definitely agree with the Cowboys 1. I'll give them an A because Dak Prescott is a top 10 QB in the NFL. But I do disagree with the Washington Commanders. I love talking about NFL depth charts. And yes, Carson Wentz is probably an average quarterback. So, yeah, see.
You saw our faces.
Sorry, I heard probably in there, and I just couldn't no, he's an average quarterback.
Yes.
When he's on the field.
Oh, no, I was actually thinking about below average. I'm sorry. But anyway, yeah, C makes sense if you're just talking about Carson Wentz and the Commanders. But then when you talk about their depth, you have a lot of options. You have Tyler Heineke, who is not bad at all. And Sam Howell. That is 3 solid QBs. Now, Howell's debatable because we haven't seen one NFL game from him. But in my opinion, I'd put the Commanders at B. If you guys agree putting the Commanders in C, completely fine with me because that's just how Wentz is. But just because we're talking about QB rooms and the depth, I don't know. I feel like the Commanders should be in B because they have 3 QBs, whereas, obviously the Chiefs, they only need 1 QB. He's elite, Patrick Mahomes. But for the Commanders, if Wentz gets injured and he's up in age and maybe he's not that good anymore this year, who knows what could happen? At least they have options. So I'm going to say Commanders B, Giants absolutely C. And who am I missing? The Eagles. Yeah, Hurts, Minshew. I'd say B.
Yeah, well, I had the exact same order as Jeremiah. I had Dallas, I think they're A. I already put them on the chart. We all agreed with them. Dak, it doesn't. It's one of those situations where I don't really care who the backup is. For the in his scenario, I don't have a real strong feeling about Cooper Rush either way. I did have the Eagles second. I had the Giants third, and man, I put on my list. I would put the Commanders as a D. I hate what the Commanders have done at quarterback. Taylor Heineke, I agree, is an okay quarterback. He's probably a little below average, but he is serviceable if you put great pieces around him. Sam Howell, I used the same argument I used last week with Malik Willis. If so many teams didn't want him for so long, how good is he really? I thought his college film that I saw was pretty impressive, but I don't know. I kind of trust the scouts a little bit. And Carson Wentz, I think the worst quarterback move, except for maybe Deshaun Watson, who's they're sitting there down there in a D, was the Commanders trading for Wentz.
Why does Deshaun Watson get brought up on every show? It's like
you can't not.
You can't not, right?
You can't not.
Ooh, you left a joke there, but I'm not going to jump on the easy joke. Let's roll. But no, I think them trading for Carson Wentz when Baker Mayfield, who I think is a much better quarterback at this point. Carson Wentz was the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. He was, before he got injured, he was probably the best quarterback in the NFL. He's just never been the same since then. I thought he dragged down the Colts last year. That's where we have the Colts as an A. So my thing is with the comparison of depth is if you have a below average starter and then a below average backup and a below average third string, I think that's bad. If you've got a superstar starter and you've got a decent backup, or you've got a guy who's in the B range as a starter with a guy who's in the B range with a backup, there's a team like that we'll talk about down below. That to me elevates it. When you're talking about, if we were just ranking individual quarterbacks on this chart, I'd have Wentz as a C, I'd have Heineke as a C, and I'd have Howell as a D. So that's my thought with Washington. The Eagles, they get a bump up, like you guys kind of said, because Gardner Minshew, I think he should get a shot to start again. He was in a pretty bad situation with Jacksonville, and he had some good stuff that he did. It seemed like maybe teams caught on to him. I was at a game in Jacksonville that he played against the Saints, and he looked like a bad college quarterback. He was slow with his reads. He didn't have a strong arm, but he was a rookie. I mean, that's kind of what happens with rookie quarterbacks a lot of times when they're thrown into the fire. I put the Giants above the Commanders because I still have a little bit of hope that Daniel Jones will be something more than what he's shown. I think I'm probably stupid for thinking that. And Tyrod Taylor, like you said, Jeremiah, he's just sticks around. And you know what? He does win games sometimes when he starts. It's not like a lost cause with Tyrod Taylor in. So I had them kind of a hair above the Commanders, but I think they're both probably on the same level. I think in my little cheat sheet, the only reason I put the Commanders down as a D, and I'll agree to put them as a C if you all agree to that. I was so angry about the move with Carson Wentz when there were so many. I think when they got him, Jameis Winston was still a free agent. You can't tell me Jameis Winston doesn't have a higher ceiling for your team than Carson Wentz. I want to say Matt Ryan was still in Atlanta at that point as well. Trade for Matt Ryan instead of Carson Wentz. Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll talk more about that when we get to the NFC West. Trade for him. I was, not that I'm a Washington fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I was kind of disgusted with the move to get Carson Wentz because I don't think he's any better than rolling with Heineke again, frankly.
Jeff, that's what gets me. As a Dolphins fan, I've seen this before, and it's like Washington has made a move to stay decidedly mediocre. They're not a team who's going to compete next year at all. They're pipe dreaming if they think they have any shot at a Super Bowl. And then you go and get Wentz, who's an older guy on his way out, as opposed to a team that I kind of liked. We ended up putting them in a C, but the Houston Texans. The Texans know they're getting draft picks, so they're rolling Davis Mills out, who's going to be their future, and they're going to be mediocre with their future. Carson Wentz is not the future in Washington. Your future is Taylor Heineke or Sam Howell. So I'm with you. I don't like the move with Carson Wentz because you plugged him in so you can win 8 games.
Yeah, if they're lucky.
So, yeah, I mean, but maybe Wentz just explodes in some weird thing, but I don't think Washington's got that many weapons around him either. So it's, if you couldn't do it in Indianapolis with Jonathan Taylor and that group, I just don't see him doing it in Washington. But, yeah, we'll go see. Because I do like the young depth, Isaac. I love the young depth. I love Heineke, and I like Sam Howell. I want to see what they got.
Isaac, are you on board with a C for Washington?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. I think we all also said a C for the Giants while we were talking. And
Daniel Jones is decidedly my second favorite quarterback in New York. We covered that on the AFC. There's nothing quite like my boy over at the Jets.
Now, the Eagles, I think we may all agree on them, too. I begrudgingly gave them a B. I think you guys may have said the same thing. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a B on that. I really like the backup and everything.
All right, so there we go. Pretty consensus on the NFC East, which you can see they're filling out the chart in a little different ways than the AFC teams did. Let's roll to the NFC North. I think before we talk about the whole division, I think we can cut one conversation real short. Aaron Rodgers is the best regular season quarterback in the NFL, and he has been for at least a few years, I would say, overall. Jordan Love is a promising backup. I think we're all probably in agreement on this. All right, so we don't need to talk about the Packers.
Yeah,
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers is durable. He doesn't really miss games. I can't think of the last time he didn't play.
He broke his collarbone, but that's years ago. But that's kind of a fluky injury. That's not a
Now for the fun part.
Okay, Isaac. So Vikings, Lions, Bears. We had 2, 3, and 4, and I may have accidentally just been reading off my list, so you know how I rank them. But Isaac, where do you slot these teams 2, 3, and 4 in the NFC North?
Vikings, Bears, and Lions. However, on this list, because of the QB rooms, nothing changes at all. So now you just have to slot them into, what position you want them to be. You look at Kirk Cousins, great QB, right? But not really top 10. In my opinion, I think he's borderline top 10. I think he's 10 through 15. And that's why I just can't put him in the A. I have him I have the Vikings the best team in that B category, but I'm going to just put them in B. A is perfectly fine, but I feel like, just because Kirk Cousins is not at that top level yet, he's not at that top 10 quarterback, ranking, I don't put him at A. And plus, the backup quarterbacks for the Vikings, Sean Mannion and Kellen Mond, no. Now, with the Bears, Justin Fields is a promising QB. We haven't seen a lot yet. I think he's going to be a great QB. But you have to put the Bears at B as well. And now it gets tricky with the Lions. You say tricky. Well, you're really looking at Goff. Again, the Lions don't have great backups. Goff is an interesting quarterback, right? Because you could put him with a lot of weapons and he may look good. But keyword look. I would put the Lions at C. Let's see if Jeremiah agrees with me. So again, just to recap, Vikings at B, Bears at B, and Lions at C.
I'm a little off on that. Like, I'll go with you with the Vikings at B because I don't know where I heard it or it came through, but apparently the coach that just left the Vikings pretty much hated Kirk Cousins. And that's like out there. Like, he didn't like Cousins at all. Like, players were saying that they thought he was actively working against Kirk Cousins. So I'm going to be interested to see what Kirk does this year with a new head coach. Somebody who maybe is backing him. Lord knows, again, we know that in Miami. We're hoping it makes a difference for Tua. So I'll put them solidly in B. For me, Chicago goes down to a D. And if I'm talking about the Lions, can we go further than D? Like, I have zero faith in Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff is just, and this is going to sound harsh, he's a loser. The guy, I mean, he's not a winner. He doesn't have that next step to put it over. And, I mean, he didn't do it with a very talented team in L.A., and all they had to do was take him out, put in Matt Stafford, and you win a Super Bowl. And then he goes to a Lions team, and it's just a dumpster fire. And then Tim Boyle and David Blau, like, the Lions should be hopping right now to call San Francisco. They should be the team that calls San Francisco.
Or Cam Newton, if they were that desperate.
Seriously. I mean, it's like they need to be making a play at Garoppolo, and I think that's a game changer for them.
I do have a question for you because I'm very surprised that you have the Bears at D because I put them at B. Where do you have Justin Fields ranked? You don't have to give me an exact ranking, but
no. I think Justin Fields is a B. But I also think, like, there were times last year that he had talent on the field and the game looked a little fast for him, which is odd. Because I remember watching Justin Fields, honestly, from the Netflix series QB1, right, when he was in high school, and then saw him into college. And the NFL game just seemed a little too fast for him. I felt like he tucked it too quick. He didn't go through reads. So, I mean, I think athletically, and I've seen the ability that he can easily be a B. Trevor Siemian, to me, is Tyrod Taylor. I mean, he just keeps floating around, but there's nothing there that's, that makes you scared. And I think maybe, to be honest, that I'm probably penalizing the quarterbacks because Chicago didn't add weapons. They gave away weapons. So, like, they didn't really have weapons last year, and the one that they had, they let them walk. So, I don't know. So I'm probably penalizing Justin Fields a little bit for that. I think he has potential to possibly break into the A range. I mean, if it ever comes together for him and has a team that looks like they're supporting him, I think he could be great.
So, but Jeff, where do you have the Bears ranked?
Oh, we're all over the place, fellas. I put the Bears as a C. I put them last in the division. I think they're a C because I think Justin Fields has a higher ceiling than Davis Mills.
So basically, Jeremiah wanted the Lions at E, and if you had the Bears last, I think the Lions.
Oh, I'm about to jump on Jeremiah about Jared Goff. don't you think that's not coming?
Hey, he's still. By the way, he's still mad about that NFC Championship game with the Saints, and that's what it was. Jared Goff was playing against the Saints.
But I have Jared Goff and the Lions, whose depth is worse than Trevor Siemian. Frankly, I have the Lions. I put them both as a C. Frankly, Jared Goff. See, here's my thing to Jeremiah is, to me, Jared Goff is Jimmy Garoppolo. They're both just middle of the road. They could be ranked between 15 to 20 in the NFL.
I agree with that.
They'll take what you give them. They'll make a couple great plays. They'll make a couple bad plays. They're not, they could be championship quarterbacks if you surround them with championship caliber teams.
Yep.
I think the Rams did more than just add Matthew Stafford. They added Von Miller and Odell. No doubt Matthew Stafford's a better quarterback than Goff. So, it was a smart move for the Rams. Don't get me wrong. But no, I think Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo, JG, I think they're interchangeable, basically. I think they're just middle of the road kind of guys that maybe you want to manage the game for you. So that's why I put them a C, slightly above, only because Justin Fields compared to, so we put the Texans as a C with Davis Mills. He showed a hell of a lot more to me on the NFL level than Justin Fields did last year.
Sure.
Fields didn't look good at all in a lot of the games I watched. He did not look like he was ready for the NFL. I don't know that they should have thrown him out there, but maybe it helps him, get used to the speed a little more. So I put both the Lions and the Bears at a C, which I think probably we're close to that as a consensus, but we can move the chart later.
Yeah,
I put the Vikings as an A.
Yeah. Ooh.
I like Kirk Cousins, man. I think he is a top 10 quarterback. However, Isaac kind of convinced me I think B might be good for them because I'm looking at the 10 teams that we have in S and A, and I think he's just outside.
And that's exactly what I said. Like, if you talk about top 10 QBs, really all the teams in those two categories, besides the Colts. The Colts have depth. Obviously, I don't think Matt Ryan is top 10, but that's for another time, or it's really for now. But we know that. Anyway, all the teams up there besides the Colts have a top 10 QB. So the Vikings and Kirk Cousins just outside of there. But yes, you would obviously agree that the Vikings are the best on that B category.
Easily. So Isaac, I'm curious because I think a lot of my Jared Goff fire comes from this. You remember Dan Campbell being the interim coach for the Dolphins. And like he was just fiery. And then everything you saw from Dan Campbell last year, right? He's just the first thing he did when he took over as an interim coach for the Dolphins was like made them do the Oklahoma drill. Like they were back hitting each other again. And Dan Campbell's like, we're going to eat, right? And I just don't see Goff as the kind of guy that can lead that team. Can he? I have a picture of Goff maybe because of where he played college ball and then in LA. Like I just see him as like a soft dude.
But
and
doesn't it say something that Dan Campbell and the Lions didn't look for a quarterback at all this offseason?
It does. It does. It's a valid point.
Well, I think me and Jeff both said that the Lions are at a C. So is that fine if we put them there?
That's fine. You convinced me with trusting Dan Campbell because I really like Dan.
Then I'm fine with the Bears.
Like Dan Campbell.
and I'm obviously fine with the Bears at C. I put them at B, but C makes sense. Obviously, I am just giving my opinion, but I obviously am smart enough to say, yes, it makes complete sense that the Bears are at C. So I think with that, we can move on, right?
Yeah. Here's to the division that might get a little fiery. Actually, I think all three of these East we'll have some healthy disagreements. The NFC South. I'm going to anger Florida Bucs fans who are watching because I'm not going to do what I did with Aaron Rodgers and say, let me just throw him into the A tier. I guess since this is my home division, I guess I'll give you my rankings first. Quick thoughts, and then we'll throw them on the board. I do have the Bucs first. I rank them as an A. Here's my thought process. Tom Brady is a great quarterback. He's shown no signs of declining. I think if he goes out, I think that team doesn't win a game. I don't trust Blaine Gabbert at all. Kyle Trask, I don't know that he's an NFL quarterback.
Okay, there's some Florida Gator fans watching, so don't.
Yeah. I'll piss off the Gators fans too, man. That's all good. But look, here's my other thing with the Bucs quarterback situation is they have a quarterback who wanted out. He wanted to go to Miami. He didn't want to play for the Bucs. He only came back to the Bucs when they agreed to kick Bruce Arians to the front office. I do look. I know we're looking at the team going into 2022, but that quarterback room is just empty when Tom Brady leaves after this season, which he's going to do. He'll find his way to play with Stephen Ross in Miami and take over for Tua. and we'll have a lot of fun Dolphins content next off season. Unless he just fake retires like he did this year, and then who knows what will happen. But he's not coming back to the Bucs. Blaine Gabbert's obviously just a stopgap. Kyle Trask, again, I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. So that's why I still put them at top of the division, because the priority is your starter going into 2022. He's obviously the most proven starter in the NFL, at Tom Brady. So I put them in the A category. So it's already going to piss off Bucs fans. I have the Saints next. I debated arguing for them for the A category, but I will say that I think they're firmly in the B. I think Jameis Winston showed a lot last season in the 6 games he played. Or I think 7th game is when he got injured, but he cut the turnovers down to almost nothing. Sean Payton really handcuffed him last season. He just basically said, I want to see you play without turning over the ball. I think they're going to unleash him. I think he's learned a little bit. I'm high on Jameis Winston going into the season. I also would argue that Andy Dalton might be the best backup quarterback in the NFL.
Nope. Man, Jeremiah.
Yeah,
there we go.
I'd argue Teddy Bridgewater is my guy. He's my second, or he might be my first. They're 1A, 1B in my opinion.
I love Andy Dalton too.
People don't remember how many times he took the Bengals to the playoffs.
Teddy Bridgewater is better.
Successful starting quarterback. I don't know. At this point in their career,
at the end of the season, we're gonna say what you just said. Teddy Bridgewater is carrying the Dolphins to the playoffs. That's what we're going to say.
I think as a Saints fan and 2 Dolphins fans, we should hope that Andy Dalton and Teddy Bridgewater don't see the damn field all season. So
that would be nice.
That's the goal.
In my opinion, I don't want to see 2 on the field. But
yeah, no, Isaac does want Bridgewater. He's been pounding that drum for the whole year, man.
Yeah, but it's a bad news situation for I would say for the Dolphins if Teddy Bridgewater is starting a bunch of games. It's a bad news scenario. Although, again, I trust the Saints to win games if Andy Dalton has to step in. There's also the elephant, the quarterback in the room who's moved to tight end. But that guy, look, if Dalton and Winston both go down, Taysom Hill's going back to quarterback. That dude is 7-2 as a starting quarterback. He's not the most polished quarterback. He is a bruising beast. He improved a lot last season in the passing game too. So to me, just throw a hint of him in. I think there's no doubt I think they're a B+ scenario when you look at the whole quarterback scenario, but not to be a homer. I'll keep him in B until we actually see Jameis do it for a full season. Throw 15 interceptions, less than 17 interceptions, and he will have a great year. Then I have the Panthers and Falcons, and I kind of flipped the coin, and I thought, I think Baker has more upside at this point than Marcus Mariota. I like Ritter. I loved him in college. The Panthers also have Darnold. I guess it's a QB competition between Mayfield and Darnold. I put the Panthers ahead, but I put them both at the C level, and the Panthers would have been a D, or they would have been the team I would have dropped below if they hadn't traded for Baker Mayfield. Their rookie quarterbacks in Atlanta and Carolina, the same thing I've said. Teams passed on them multiple times in a league driven by quarterbacks. We've talked about tonight so many teams that have question marks at quarterbacks, and they still passed on these guys. So I thought Ritter would potentially be a first-round pick, and obviously I was wrong. And Mariota, look, it's an interesting division if you look at this. Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round. Jameis Winston was a number 1 pick. Baker Mayfield was a number 1 pick. Marcus Mariota was the number 2 pick. But those 3 guys are still young quarterbacks. They're not past their prime or anything like that. They're not beyond repair or improvement. I think Jameis showed it last year. So the Panthers, Falcons, I put them both in the C class just because, there's potential there. I think that they could actually have a franchise quarterback in the building, be it their starter or their rookie. So that was my thoughts. Bucks, Saints, Panthers, Falcons. Again, the Panthers and Falcons are really a coin flip for me.
I don't want to cut you off, Jeremiah, but I'm getting too excited to talk about this. I need to go. The Buccaneers. I'm not going to disappoint the state of Florida. Tom Brady is the GOAT. I'm sorry. And I can't disappoint. And why I said Florida. Gator fans and Buccaneer fans. Can't disappoint. Sorry, I just have to do it. I'm going to put the Buccaneers in the S category. Look, we've seen nothing from Kyle Trask, so I'm going to leave him out of the conversation. But I'm not going to upset Gator fans. So we won't talk anything bad about him. But
I'll do that.
Buccaneer fans, you definitely can't say anything bad about Tom Brady. He's the GOAT. If you talk about, longevity and the future, that's debatable, right? Because who knows how much longer Tom Brady has. But if you're talking about the 2022 to 2023 NFL season, give me the Buccaneers at S. Now, this is where it gets interesting. I love Jameis Winston. I am one of those few NFL fans that is willing to take 30 interceptions from Jameis Winston because he leads the NFL in passing yards, right? Many people will disagree, but I'm willing to have my QB throw that many interceptions if he's going to have a gain. And that gain is throwing so many yards. So, in my opinion, I like Jameis Winston. So, I'd put Winston at B, but borderline B, maybe C. But then, the Saints persuade me. Taysom Hill, Andy Dalton, and Ian Book, all of those QBs have gone in playing time in the NFL. So, with depth, the Saints are a lock at B. Absolute lock. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You have the Panthers and Falcons. Baker Mayfield, say what you want. He's had a ton of good NFL games in his career, but a lot of bad games. And Brown fans are very explicit when it comes to having a bad game. And they will tell Baker when he does bad. But Mayfield isn't that bad. And when you have Donald on your roster, it really is interesting because I think Mayfield's better than Darnold. And Donald as a backup quarterback, that's not that bad. Like, say what you want about how bad Donald is as a backup quarterback, especially because Donald isn't that old. He's young, right? I like that. So I am going to put the Panthers in the C. They have two options, right? I'm not going to talk about Matt Corral from Ole Miss. I'm just going to talk about Darnold and Mayfield. They have two options. I'm sure both of them will play, even if, let's say Mayfield's a starting quarterback and he doesn't get injured, Darnold will still have playing time, even as a starter. So, yeah, there's not really much to talk about. The Panthers have two options at QB, Darnold and Mayfield. They're both slightly below average. They could be average. So I'm going to put them at C. And then the Falcons, I'm putting them at D. I'm sorry. Like, for me, I actually liked Mariota as the Raiders' backup quarterback. He sometimes came on the field, even if he didn't get the ball. It was like, it got the defense on their toes. Like, maybe Derek Carr is going to give it to Mariota. Maybe they're going to do a passing trick play. Or maybe Mariota is just going to run it. We saw it last year. Mariota ran the ball.
Taysom Hill roll.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a good scrambler. But as a starting quarterback with no options behind, I'm sorry. Yes, Ritter was amazing on Cincinnati. But in the NFL, gosh, I don't see him being good. And then Felipe Franks. Sorry, Gator fans. Now I'm going to disappoint. Yeah, he's been in the NFL for a few years, and he's been nothing short of good. I went to a Falcons-Dolphins preseason game at Hard Rock Stadium last year, and Franks was throwing interceptions in a preseason game. No, I'm sorry. I like Mariota. Nothing against Mariota, but there's just no options. As a starting quarterback in 2022, right? Maybe if it's 2017, Mariota as a starting quarterback, hey, sounds good to me. But in 2022, a starting quarterback with really no good backups, you can't really talk about Ritter. He hasn't played in one NFL game. He was amazing at Cincinnati, but Cincinnati had weapons, right? And Cincinnati was in the AAC. Not that strong of a conference.
How dare you?
That's a USF fan. And so, yes, I'm sorry, being an FL team's founder, I can't disappoint all the Florida teams, but at times I have to. Sorry, USF fans, but anyway. All right, in all seriousness, AAC is not that good. So, yeah, Ritter, no. Franks, no. So I'm putting the Falcons at D. So just a recap, I like to give recaps after all because there's so much breakdown in these. Buccaneers S, Saints B, nodding his head, Panthers C, and then Falcons D. So I'm all over the place.
Before Jeremiah goes, I will never argue against putting the Falcons in the lowest possible ranking. Never.
So we're really, I'm going to break this 2022 first, right? But then I have a different thought when we talk a little deeper, like Isaac was going. One, I don't think there's any doubt in the world that Tampa is in that S category, period. Because here's one thing that we tend to forget. And now maybe I'm wrong. This is where I wish we had Andrew. Didn't Blaine Gabbert lead the Jaguars to an AFC championship game?
No, that was Blake Bortles. UCF.
Yeah, was Bortles. Okay, so I was wrong.
UCF. Okay, we're knocking out all the Florida teams. Now we just we just have to hit FSU and FAU. Sorry.
Jameis Winston, FSU. There we go.
Blaine Gabbert, I think, can work within that offense. I think he can work if he needs to. But again, Brady's in his entire GOAT career missed 1 year, I feel like. And that was when the Dolphins ran the Wildcat. Like that was it. Like it was forever ago. Brady is that you can't touch him or you get a 15-yard penalty. He's going to play. So the Bucs are there. Where we get different is I'm going to tell you, dude, you guys are going to win and they're going to go to a B. What I've always loved about Baker Mayfield is when you push Baker Mayfield into a corner, dude comes out swinging. In big games in college, he stepped up. In big games in college, he stepped up. When he got with the Browns and they were making a run in those games against Pittsburgh, in those games against Baltimore, he stood up. I think Baker has an enormous chip on his shoulder. And if Christian McCaffrey stays healthy, the weapons, I give it an A. I give them an A. Carolina.
I thought he was going to go with B, and he gives him an A.
No, I thought he was going to go wild with the B also.
No, yeah, you're going to bump it down, but I'm telling you, I think Baker Mayfield is going to have a year. I think when that dude is pushed into a corner, he looks like a dude who responds. Period.
By the way, question for you: is he a B and it bumps up to an A with Donald and Corral, or are you just giving him an A himself?
No, I'm going with an A with him, and I feel solid at B with
then push him to an Donald. S. Push them to an S with Donald. Come on.
There we go.
And then I feel like a B with Darnold. I think Darnold was a born backup. Darnold never should have been a starter. He's a born backup, but I think he can do well with that. And then I put the Saints. And you know how I feel about Jameis Winston. I just don't get it. I put him in a B because what you said, Isaac, I feel like what made the Saints successful, and Jeff, you're going to know way better than me, but they had quarterbacks who didn't make a lot of mistakes. They played really good defense. Yep. They played safe. They won games. Jameis is not cut from that mold. And I mean, I get it. They're going to set an offense for him. And your wide receivers are insanely good.
By the way, the Saints, imagine if they had a lot of weapons last year. And I mean on the receiving end. Imagine if Michael Thomas played. Imagine if they had a second punch.
And a third.
Yeah.
A second punch. Who could it be, Jeff? Who could be the number 2 punch?
Well, look, last year, just to speak on the Saints, their top 3 receivers are now their 4th, 5th, and 6th receivers.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, it is unbelievable the lack of wide receiver talent they had on the field. I like Marcus Callaway, who now he's a number 4 receiver. And that's what he is. He's a 3 or a 4. Deontay Hardy, formerly Harris, he's a burner. He adds a great element to the deep ball. He and Jameis hit 2 touchdowns over 70, or 3 touchdowns, I think, over 70 yards, if I'm remembering correctly, or at least over 50 yards. But anyways, but he didn't have the weapons. So, no, I do think you'll see a big shift in the Saints offense to now we've got a great defense, but we got we got a rocket arm quarterback. We're going to take some shots down the field.
Nobody will love that more than Kamara because Kamara is used to stack boxes and if you get him room.
Imagine if Winston had a duo like Evans and Godwin.
Right. I mean, he'd do something like throw 40 interceptions.
Exactly. Well, and lead the NFL in passing yards. There we go.
Okay. But, you can throw it forever, but if you keep just turning it over, it's like, but we'll all agree the Falcons are going to be at D. But now here's where I'll flip this when we talk about setting it up. Jeff, I think the Saints have done a tremendous job with Andy Dalton. I love Andy Dalton, but what I love even more about Andy Dalton is that Ian Book reminds me of Andy Dalton. So when you're talking down the road, that's a great quarterback for Ian Book to be in the same room with. I saw Ian Book at Notre Dame. He's a smart kid. He's a good quarterback, and he can be serviceable just like Dalton. So I like that setup, right? I think Carolina's quarterback room is kind of a mess because you really don't – Darnold's still going to fight for it. Corral's kind of different. They're all different. I like Atlanta's setup going forward because I think you're going to design an offense for Marcus Mariota, which is going to be an offense that's going to be successful for Desmond Ridder, right? I think Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota are very similar. So you've got quarterbacks that you can design that offense for 1 or 2 years down the road maybe, or if it's mid-season. The Falcons are one of the teams like the Texans that I feel like kind of bought into like, we're not competing this year. So if Desmond Ridder's our future, let's get a quarterback that's similar to him. We're going to take it on the chin this year, right? And we got to rebuild. I think that's where they are. I mean, when Cordero Patterson was your leading rusher, I mean, I like Cordero, but they're a mess. And you lose your starting wide receiver because he's betting on football games while he's hurt. You've got a tight end. And that's it. So going down the line, I agree with you that I don't think Tampa's set up well at all. Gabbard is not the guy who's going to succeed Tom Brady. And I don't think Kyle Trask is either. But yeah, I mean, so that's me. But I know I'm going to get overridden on that one. I know Carolina's falling. I just got a lot of faith in Baker, man. I really think that he's a cocky SOB who's going to want to shove it straight up Cleveland and the NFL. And we'll see what happens.
So ultimately, are we going here with Carolina?
It's reasonable. I'll agree. If you two are there, it's a reasonable. I get it.
I just can't put them. Looking at the two teams right here, I can't put them at the same level. Even I'd argue these three teams. I just can't put them.
I would take Darnold over Jameis. I mean, but that's a personal preference. So I can see those two together.
Okay, yeah. We're not going to go into that. Let's move on.
All right, so they're down to C. We'll take the C.
Jeff, don't even respond. Just move on.
No, I'm moving on.
Let's put the Falcons down low so we agree on that one.
Yes. We got that. I'm happy again. All right. The NFC West is our final division. We're going to agree on one team, I think, for sure, because I think it is probably the worst quarterback situation in the NFL to me. Let's Isaac, why don't you do us the honors of going first? Rams, Cardinals, 49ers, Seahawks. Where do you have them in that division?
We'll get this out of the way, right? Seahawks at D.
Is that unanimous, Jeremiah?
Yeah.
That's
all
unanimous. Right. Perfect. We got that out of the way.
There we
go. I mean, hey, I just need to say 2 words. Drew Lock. That's it.
Isaac, the depth chart that I'm looking at has Geno Smith as the starter.
Yes. But either way, fine. My 2 words, Geno Smith. Whatever.
Both are really bad.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. Stafford, and I'll save the 49ers for last. Stafford and Kyler Murray. On a lot of people's QB rankings, they're kind of right next to each other. At least that's how I've seen it. They both play totally different, right? Stafford stays in the pocket. Kyler Murray's definitely rolls out, makes some crazy plays, breaks sacks, does that type of stuff. But both the Rams and Cardinals do not have a good backup quarterback. So we're really just looking at their stars, right? Stafford and Murray. And I think it's just simple. No good backups. They're both really good, but they're not on the level of the teams in the S category. So I'm putting the Rams and Cardinals at the A category. I just don't think that they're S. I mean, yes, the Rams made the Super Bowl, but the Rams defense is insanely elite. And Stafford had the weapons. Kupp, Woods, even during the regular season, was a great piece. And Stafford is A. That QB room, no good backups, A. Same for the Cardinals. Now, last but not least, the one and only 49ers. We do not know the future of Garoppolo. We do not know the future of Trey Lance. We assume that Trey Lance is going to be on the 49ers this season, but who 49ers trade him? But I don't think that's going to happen. Lance, we've seen very little of, but in his few plays at the NFL level, he's been flashy. His first NFL play, he completed a long pass. He's had a few rushing touchdowns, but that's really it. That's it. And he hasn't been under pressure yet. No 2-minute drills. That's it. I have to put the 49ers at C. The reason is uncertainty. In any quarterback room, you don't want there to be uncertainty. There could be uncertainty in a quarterback competition, right? 2 quarterbacks fighting for the starting position. 2 in Bridgewater fighting. But this isn't fighting. This is who is going to be the starting quarterback, but the person who's not is going to get traded. In my opinion, that's what's happening. It's not Garoppolo is going to start and Lance is going to be a backup. The backup, in my opinion, is getting traded. I don't know if that's a hot take, but that's what I'm going to go with. So,
well,
yeah,
Adam Schefter tweeted that the 49ers gave Jimmy Garoppolo's agents permission to seek a trade partner.
Exactly. But I think Lance could get traded just because his value could be high for some teams. It could be low for other teams, in my opinion. So, again, A, we're going with the Seahawks. No, I'm just kidding. D, we went with the Seahawks.
I love Drew Lock.
Yes. D, we went with the Seahawks. He's down there. Rams, A. Cardinals, A. And in my opinion, the 49ers at C. What do you guys think?
Jeremiah, where do you have them?
Well, we agree Seattle is a dumpster fire. San Francisco, I think Garoppolo's the one gone. I mean, the other report I saw behind Schefter was that the Niners are going to lightly put him through preseason. So they're kind of saying to Garoppolo, you can show up in practice, but like, we're not going to get you hurt. You can, move on. So I think Garoppolo may end up in Seattle. Believe it. I mean, where else is he going to go? I don't know. I still say Detroit, but that I'm a loner there. I'm going to put Matthew Stafford and the Rams in the S. I truly believe that Matthew Stafford is on the level of the quarterbacks who are listed at the top of it. The way he played in the Super Bowl was absolutely and the playoff run altogether. Matt Stafford was just a stud. And I think that's who he is when you surround him with a little bit of talent. And so I would put him there. Their backup situation is an absolute mess. I don't like the Cardinals for a simple reason of this. Kyler Murray has shown zero progression since he came in this league. If you look at Kyler Murray's stats from 2019, 2020, 2021, he's the same quarterback, man. And it hasn't been good enough. It hasn't been good enough to make a playoff run. His completion percentage, 64.4, 67, 69. Yards, 37, 39, 37. Touchdowns, 20, 26, 24. Interceptions, 12, 12, 10. He's the same guy every year, and it hasn't been good enough to go anywhere. So I don't believe in Kyler Murray. I think they're probably at a B. I'll put him in that level with below with the Kirk Cousins. He's not down with the Darnolds and the Fields of the world, but he's a B. And in San Francisco, I don't know what Trey Lance is. Who knows? And Garoppolo, when he goes, then who's the backup? Because I truly believe it's going to be, Garoppolo's going to be gone. So if he's gone, then we're looking at Nate Sudfeld behind Trey Lance. That doesn't look very promising. I mean, I don't know that it's Seahawks level, but it's kind of dangerously close. I'd say they're in a C. So I mean, that's where I would put them.
By the way, I do want to say something in regards to where you put the Rams, I just, if Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson are in the A category, in my opinion, and this is how I judge Stafford, I just can't possibly put him in the S category. I don't see how I just don't, that would be hurting, Lamar's and Russell's feelings. I just don't think that Stafford, and especially the QB room, like, let's be honest, with the Broncos, Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson. The Ravens, Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson. They're similar to the Rams because they have no good backups. But Lamar, if you put Lamar on the Rams, they're winning the Super Bowl. If you put Russell Wilson on the Rams, they're winning the Super Bowl.
I agree with that one.
I agree with that one.
And it's not like, because the Ravens and Broncos are in A, you have to put the Rams in A. I agree with the Broncos and Ravens at A. So that's my opinion. I obviously respect your opinion. Stafford's very good, but I would put
it this way. Stafford, if you run the old Eminem song, right, you got one shot. Stafford, his first time actually being surrounded by a talented team, wins a Super Bowl.
He had Calvin Johnson.
Detroit never had.
Right, they had the best receiver in the football.
But the defense was a leaking sieve, and I think who was the running back at that time? I don't even remember. Javad Best, right? So they never had that. But when Stafford stepped into a spot where you say, "Okay, are you great, Matt? Prove it." He proved it. I mean,
I can tell you, I can break these ties easily. You already saw I just dumped San Francisco in the sea because we all had them there. Mm-hmm. I think that's borderline generous if they trade Jimmy Garoppolo because to me, Trey Lance made a few flashy plays, but I watched a couple of his games. He looked like a dumpster fire out there.
If Garoppolo,
except for his highlight plays.
If Garoppolo is traded, I'd have to put the 49ers at D because I did that to Marcus Mariota. So I'm not gonna put Lance at C and then Mariota at D.
We'll keep him there. Yeah, I can break the ties on the Cardinals and Rams because I think one of you had an A and a B on the Cardinals. I put him as a B. And I'm even more confident in that after Jeremiah's argument, to be honest. Because you are absolutely correct. And I'm usually a guy who stares at the stats. He really has been pretty much the same quarterback he's been since he's gotten in the league. He hasn't progressed. He's a good quarterback. He's a top half of the league quarterback for sure. But he hasn't taken it, and you can't say he hasn't had weapons around him. He had DeAndre Hopkins. Well, I think he's suspended this year for a little bit, but so I put him as a B. So I think that's 2 Bs and an A, right? So throw them in there. The Rams, I can also break this tie because you're arguing with an S or an A. In my rankings, I did have them on top of the division. I gave them a B. I don't think Matthew Stafford is a special quarterback. I think he's a very good quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback.
Look who won that argument. I got the A in here. There we go.
There you go. Look,
I got the Cardinals. It's 50-50. Jeff, you're great.
Yeah, I
think Jeff knew this was going to happen. That's why he went last for this.
I knew we were going to have I thought we were going to have a bigger disagreement on the 49ers because
no.
But I think the Jimmy Garoppolo news actually probably made it so none of us we were all even less sure about that situation.
Yeah. Well, like I said, uncertainty is something you cannot have on any depth chart. It doesn't even have to be a QB room, any room.
Right.
If you have 2 starting quarterbacks, you have 0 starting quarterbacks. I mean,
in some cases,
that's a saying, right?
Well, it may be, but in the Dolphins' case, they have 2. But in the 49ers, in the 49ers case, though, they practically have 0.
Yeah. Well, look, and on the Kyler Murray thing, like as we were breaking this down, and I'm thinking in my head earlier about Kyler Murray, and I'm like, man, the Cardinals never break through. And I didn't take the time to look at it. And then when I looked at the stats, I was kind of blown away. Like literally, same dude. And like you're 3 years in, so there's no growth there. And maybe he got Hollywood Brown, right? That was his dude. I mean, maybe, but I mean, you had DeAndre Hopkins and you had Fitzgerald when he had at least a little gas left, right?
Oh yeah.
And and you had Chase Edmonds, and you had talent. So, I think It's funny though. I guess we look at the
Oh,
bottom.
also
of the
Kenny and
Browns.
Drake. Kenny and Drake made the Pro Bowl,
Yeah,
I think, on the
right.
Cardinals.
And then James Conner, who was, I mean, they had a good year.
Oh,
I
he
mean,
scored a lot of touchdowns last
yeah.
season.
So we think Drew Lock / Geno Smith, Mariota / Ritter, whenever he takes the job, and whoever's in Cleveland. I don't even remember now who's going to be Cleveland's starter.
Well, you know what's funny? Before we end this broadcast,
Brissett.
yeah. But before we end this broadcast, I do want to point out this because sometimes, on Wednesday nights on FL Teams Live, we do like a week in sports review, right?
Mhm.
And we just break down the news that's happened. There is one. I mean, there's been a lot of news in the NFL, but this story, I don't want to break it down because we can go into so many paths with it. But the Browns are reportedly interested in Cam Newton. I want to leave it at that, but there was a report on Twitter. I don't know if it's accurate, but they may be interested in Cam Newton.
I'd stick with Brissett. That's my opinion on Cam Newton.
Well, hey,
He's broken down. I mean, it's nothing against Cam Newton.
But by the way, it would make sense. It would make sense why the Browns would sign him just because they know Brissett isn't just to maybe have a competition before the season starts. I don't know.
Just so they have two of the same quarterbacks who are too slow
to
play the game.
Used to be mobile, but now just can't even move. You agree, Isaac? Jacoby Brissett looked horrible when he had to play in Miami last year.
Exactly.
I mean,
and this is kind of a little story here. When I went to the Ravens-Dolphins Thursday night game, and you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of Tua. I'm not a fan at all. Brissett was starting. I'm completely fine with that. Where, most of the Dolphins fan base is like, it's Thursday night football, national TV. Where's Tua? Anyway, Brissett starting, completely fine with me. Brissett does terrible, gets injured. Tua comes in. I'll admit, I was booing when Tua came in. Dolphin fans looked at me. I felt like I was going to get beat up.
You should have.
I did get cursed by some fan. I was wearing a Dolphins jersey. Who was on the Dolphins jersey? Can you guess?
Tua.
Yes.
Love it. And you're angry when he gets in.
Look, I was just supporting Tua, but I don't, look, Brissett, you know what? I don't know if I made it clear that I wanted Brissett over Tua, but I didn't want Tua. And I said, you know what, Brissett, fine. Let Brissett play. But, yeah, most of the Dolphins fan base was completely against Brissett playing in any NFL game. But that's why I wish the Dolphins held on to Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know he was injured last season, but hey, who knows if he would have been injured on the Dolphins? And I just love Fitzmagic. I really think, and you agree with me, probably both of you, the Dolphins should have kept Fitzmagic last season. Yeah.
If nothing else, to keep grooming Tua and what it was, I think they had a great relationship. I'm trying to think, there's a couple of injuries in the NFL that kind of linger on for longer than they should, right? Is it like turf toe? Turf toe keeps people out for like 5-6 weeks, maybe a high ankle sprain, something like that. I'm trying to.
Michael Thomas missed basically a year and a half from a high ankle sprain.
Well, it seems like Saquon hasn't really recovered since his injury.
So I'm just saying, like, if I'm Nick Chubb, I might get a high ankle sprain sometime in preseason. Because if I'm Nick Chubb, I'm pissed. I'm in the prime of my career, right? You are. And you're gonna go out there. It's a lost season.
Imagine Nick Chubb. Imagine Nick Chubb on the Bills.
Oh my God! You've got two great running backs, but they're gonna get you're giving Cleveland as an organization basically said, "Hey guys, just take a beating this year for us." Yeah. I mean, it's the most Cleveland thing you could possibly do.
Yeah. Well, you know something about the Bills? They proved that you don't need to have a good running back room. Nothing against my favorite NFL running back, Devin Singletary from FAU. He is average. Sometimes below average. Zach Moss, average as well.
I thought Moss would be better. I
think average running backs work if you're relying
the
on
fact
other
that the Chiefs
things.
make it so the fact that the Chiefs do well every year and do well in the playoffs most of the time. Because if you look at most playoff teams, it doesn't, like, most playoff teams have a good running back. The Chiefs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still better than any Bills running back. Let's be honest.
Look,
by far.
As as much as we all get caught up in the fancy 5 wide, throw it around the field, at the end of the season, when everybody's got to read on everybody else, if you can't run the ball, you're not going to win. That just happens. I mean, the Rams, Cam Akers came on strong in that playoff run, right? I mean, you have to run the ball. And if you want to ask why the Bills dropped it, because they couldn't run the ball. I mean, Josh Allen is fantastic, but he can't be your best running back and your quarterback. Like, it's not going to work in the playoffs.
Hey, but before we wrap this up, let's all look at our work of art we've got here. Is there, if you in your dying plea in this tier ranking could say this one team is in the wrong one, they need to move up, down, whatever, which is there a team that jumps out to you? And we'll all get one pick. We're not going to move them. This is our agreed to board. But is there one pick you're like, oh, this guy's in the wrong tier class?
I got one.
Go ahead.
Honestly, I would have put the Dolphins at S if it wasn't for Tua. I'm not going to lie.
Come on. I was considering picking the Dolphins and saying they got to drop down to a C if you look at the other teams in that line.
And I'm actually being unbiased here. I completely agree with that Dolphins one because Tua himself, probably a C. Bridgewater himself, borderline C, maybe D. But together, it's B. And honestly, Tua under weapons this year is going to look like a BQB. Look like a BQB. Like I said, and I've said this on multiple shows, I think. I definitely say this to my friends. Tua's going to complete 5 yards of an air pass, 5-yard air pass. Tyreek Hill is going to run it 80 yards for a touchdown. What is it going to say on ESPN? 85-yard touchdown. Hey, it works, right? It works. But that's why I say the Dolphins could do better than that, right?
Jeremiah, is there a team that jumps out at you like, this team shouldn't be there? And
so can I make a switch? Can I make a switch? Because this one's been eating me since last week. The Chargers go down, the Bengals go up. The only reason being, I love Justin Herbert, but we're putting Justin Herbert into a lineup here with Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Josh Allen, and Mahomes, and Burrow just took the Bengals to the Super Bowl, and the Chargers didn't make the playoffs. So that one's been eating me a little bit, man. I feel like just off of what it is, Burrow should be more considered in that group than Herbert. Herbert put up great numbers.
I wasn't here last week, but I was wondering when I got in the show why the Chargers are up there. I said, there's no backup quarterback that boosts them. It has to just solely be Herbert.
He is.
And I disagree with you bumping up the Bengals to an S. I would just put both the Bengals and Chargers at an A.
I think that I could maybe sign off on that. My thing with Justin Herbert, I've had this discussion with so many people, and again, I talk about my son and his whole concept of if every roster just went to 0 and all 32 teams had to draft, who would the top 3 picks be?
Mm-hmm.
I think Mahomes would be number 1, no doubt. I think Josh Allen would be number 2, probably. And Justin Herbert would be number 3, in my opinion. And most people I've spoken to have that same order. They, you're talking Rodgers and Brady aren't in the conversation because if you're redrafting a roster, you're not going to pick an old quarterback as your cornerstone. I think Burrow would go before Brady and Rodgers as well. I think he'd probably be the 4th. I have no idea who would be the 5th, to be honest. That's kind of an interesting.
I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here and have deep thinking, but I would actually pick someone like Brady or Rodgers. Seriously, because if you win the Super Bowl that year and
then you pick 32nd and you can't replace your quarterback.
Yeah, but think about it. Your team is good. I think that let's use Rodgers because Rodgers has a few years left in him.
There's a few years. Yeah. He might be in the top 5.
Yeah. But anyway, I hate to see Herbert in the S category because I'm a Dolphins fan and we missed drafting him. So that's not a good look for us, Jeremiah.
No, look, one of the real reasons that I wanted Justin Herbert is he is probably the most Marino-like prospect who's come out in a long time. He's built that way, right? He throws that way. He really reminds me of that, right? But then he also reminds me of another Chargers quarterback, Dan Fouts, right? Fouts put up big numbers, showing my age going back. I wish he was in Miami. I do. But then let's see what he does. Herbert in college never won big, right? Kind of same as Danny Boy. And, and so far he's got talent and they made we'll see. Herbert is the most physically gifted quarterback. I would say he's probably even as physically gifted as Josh Allen very easily. But I could also see him just being in that mediocre, putting up big numbers, but not winning.
All right. My team. So the Flow Show commented, one of the teams in my head was, I don't see Jared Goff on the level with the quarterbacks we put him on, but we'll move past that. The one that really sticks in my craw the most, Kirk Cousins is so much better than every other starting quarterback on that level.
Yeah, but you have to put him at
I think he's better than Matthew Stafford. I would take Kirk Cousins on my team over Stafford all day. I'd take him probably over Derek Carr. I'd take him over Matt Ryan. I know they don't have backup, but that's the one that, if I'm gonna say one team on this list needs to be moved up, I'm gonna stupidly throw my support behind Kirk Cousins, who also had a devastating blow to my Saints in the playoffs recently. But I still would say, putting him on a level with Jalen Hurts and Ryan Tannehill, Mac Jones, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, even, who didn't look good last year. I mean, I'm sure he's going to be good. It's like, oof, that's a tough pill to swallow. He's not in their class. I can see you saying he's not in Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Again, Joe Burrow, I think, is the best the Bengals are the best in that A category. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think the Vikings are so much better in the B category that I have a hard time with that. So that would be my, the one that, if you look at our great work of art we've done, that would be the one of mine that hits me. That's
Jeff. I might support your Hail Mary, and I have short-term memory loss. But how exactly did we put them at B? Because I feel kind of the same way you do about Kirk Cousins. And I think when I was saying, he's got a coach that apparently doesn't hate him now, and he was still putting up numbers. So if he was doing that between them, I am a fan of Kirk Cousins. I mean, I know we've locked it in, but I'm saying if there's a Hail Mary catch, I'd be down for bumping him up right now.
What do you think, Isaac? You want a last-minute shift?
This is what I have to say. There's tiers for a reason, right? You have to end somewhere. In my opinion, and this is just me, if I bump the Vikings up to an A, I am immediately bumping up. And I already said the Cardinals an A, so that's just me. But I would definitely bump up the Cardinals to an A. And the Titans even. I don't think Tannehill is much worse than Kirk Cousins. And with Malik Willis. Okay, but if you put the Vikings at A, I'm putting the Titans at A. I'm sorry.
Oh, again, this is my argument last week. Malik Willis fell in the draft for a reason.
Yes, but
the media loved him, but the NFL teams did not.
And Isaac, come on, man. As a Dolphins fan, I love RT17, but what did he do when he got in the playoffs? Tannehill.
Yeah. Hey, but Cousins,
he's got Derrick Henry rushing crazy.
Cousins isn't much better than Tannehill.
I think he's miles ahead.
Yeah.
But let me say this: we put the Titans at B last week. I had them at a C when I ranked.
Yeah.
Jeremiah and James, my son, argued with me that Tannehill was better than I think Tannehill is a garbage quarterback.
If that Titans team had Kirk Cousins, the Bengals don't make the Super Bowl last year. Tannehill lost that game. Tannehill lost that game flat out. And Cousins would have carried him through it. I love RT17. I love some Tannehill. And I don't know how I feel about Malik Willis, but it could work out.
Hey, you guys can move the Vikings up to an A, but it stands. I don't think he's a top 10 QB. And obviously there's more than 10 teams.
There's like 12 teams.
Yeah,
in the top
but I just
moving on up.
I have to end. A tier has to end at a certain point. I mean, I already said the Cardinals at A.
Well, we
And
can throw this guy down here if you. No, you guys don't want that. we can throw this team down here too. Eh?
Hey, by
I
the way,
didn't even think we could throw this
I
team
think
down.
Isaac would be into that. I think Isaac would be into moving the Colts down.
I wasn't here last week. I still don't know how the Colts ended up at an A. Can someone
Matt
explain?
Ryan, I think, is a borderline top 10 quarterback, depending on the season. And they've got Nick Foles, who actually, we were talking about Teddy and Dalton. I think Nick Foles actually might be the best backup quarterback
I think
in the
Foles
NFL.
is the bump. Foles is what keeps him at an A.
Okay, fine. But whatever.
I love the debate, guys. This is
Look.
this
Well,
is
you know
good
what?
to
No.
disagree.
The Colts and Jeremiah, I think you're here for this because we were talking about the Eagles. The Colts with Ryan and Foles, that's similar to Hurts and Minshew.
Sure.
I'm right. I'm right about it.
Except
Oh,
more
Matt
proven.
Ryan is way
More
above
proven.
Jalen Hurts.
Right. It's
No.
more proven. It's a similar
yet, not yet.
package.
Jalen Hurts
It's a
played
similar
2 good
package,
games
but-
in his career, and they're both against the Saints.
Yeah, way more proven. It's a similar package, Isaac. I'll give you that, but it's the younger package. The Colts are in that proven one. I got to tell you, and I know we're rambling through it, but I don't care. I like it. We're all back together again. I don't like Lamar Jackson. I don't like the Colt. I don't think Lamar Jackson, especially without Hollywood Brown, is anywhere near on the level of those guys in that. I don't think as a
He's
passer.
still very skilled. So in terms of the QB room, I would keep them on today. But yeah, I don't think. I mean, besides the Colts and the Vikings, in my opinion, I think they're at the bottom of that A tier list.
I think the Dolphins kind of exposed Lamar Jackson a little bit last season. I thought much higher of him before that game than after that game. It's like that was like a real like high school level. Like we're just sending the house on every play, try to hit a pass, and he couldn't do it because he couldn't scramble out of the pocket.
The NFL is a copycat league. If you don't think Lamar's going to see more of that without Hollywood, like Lamar might be exposed in a big way. I mean, the Ravens were beat up last year. They were as hurt as anybody. I mean, dude, they signed Le'Veon Bell. It got that bad. They were like, maybe for one game. Nobody can run the ball.
I'm just confused at the fact that the Ravens did so bad against the Dolphins. Like I'm going to be completely honest. I was rooting for a 50-40 game. I said, please, Lamar Jackson, go off, but let the Dolphins win. I wanted to see an exciting game in person, but with the Dolphins still resulting in victory. Obviously, the Dolphins still won. Let's go. But Lamar Jackson, that was the worst game of his career by far.
And again, he didn't play that great to finish out the rest of the season either.
Yes.
The NFL's a copycat.
That was the worst game, and it was on Thursday Night Football in front of everyone.
They exposed him. Jeff put it right. They exposed him. And sometimes when that happens in the NFL, you just don't rebound. If you're exposed and you can't adapt, that's a bad thing.
That should be the game plan against them for the first 4 weeks of the season, right? I mean, show us we shouldn't do this.
Go get him and then put somebody that can handle Mark Andrews, a big safety. Get a big safety on Mark Andrews and go get him. Right? I mean, till you see otherwise.
Yeah, no, that single game made me move Lamar Jackson from like top tier to like, he's not there. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but I do kind of think back and wonder, has he really progressed? You made the argument with Kyler Murray and you brought the stats. I don't have them. Like, I remember when his first year as a starter, not when he came in late for Joe Flacco in his rookie year, his first year as a starter, I feel like his numbers are better than they've been the last couple seasons. So it might look here's one thing with quarterbacks who run the ball a lot. I always thought this with Michael Vick. Great athlete, human highlight reel. He also, until that 1 year in Philly when he was out of jail, until that 1 year, he didn't really show progress as a passer.
His passing yards have steady dropped since 2019. 2019, 3,100 yards, 2020, 2,757. He bounced up a little bit last year, 2021, but when he did that, he was
injured.
2882. But when he did that, he dropped, almost 400 yards in rushing. Last year was the first year without 1,000-yard rushing since 2019. So he had back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Agile quarterbacks don't age well in the NFL. And so you go back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and then it drops to 700. And, your completion percentage is sticking right at 64, 65. Dude, touchdown passes. Let's go with that. 2019, 36. 2020, 26. 2021, 16.
Yeah,
16.
and he missed a few games, but that's
16 touchdown passes, 13 interceptions.
That's Jameis Winston type numbers right there.
Yeah,
not
Lamar's
last year's
got us in a
Jameis
haze.
Winston numbers.
Well, Lamar has us in a haze because he's a highlight reel, but I think he has steady decreased. And again, agile quarterbacks don't age well. Mike Vick, you've got a window where you explode, but after a while, you're not as fast anymore, man. You've taken hits.
He was able to heal up while he was in jail, and that's why he had that rebound year with Philadelphia.
All he had to do was pump waste, baby. Hit the yard. So, no, when we look at it, yeah, Baltimore, Lamar's suspect.
Yeah. Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun because this was these two episodes, especially this one, were the ones where we actually disagreed more often than not. So it was a lot of fun having the debates. As always, the plea is you're watching on FL Teams. You got to hit the subscribe button or the follow button or the like button or the whatever button and comment like the Flow Show has been doing here for us. Let us know what you think. Tell us how dumb we are. There's no way, especially as split as we were on some teams, that somebody out there didn't think one of us was dumb. Probably this guy.
I'm going to get crushed for Baker.
Oh, yeah. Isaac, make sure you clip that. We're going to put that out there. The Baker Mayfield fan club is going to be run out of Jeremiah's garage after this.
Hey, come on. He didn't play for a Florida team, except I remember watching that interview. He said he was thinking about going to FAU. It sounds funny. He was seriously thinking about going to FAU. Like, you go from FAU to Oklahoma. Like, huge change. Huge.
No, they're pretty much the same, right? They're all, Big 12 level, right?
Oh, God.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up for my good friends, Jeremiah Hensley. I don't know why I'm pointing over here. I should be pointing at the screen. For my good friend, Jeremiah Hensley and Isaac Edelman, I'm Jeff Macolino. Thanks for watching FL Teams Live. We will see you next week.